breaking news coming out of the Formula One world as we enter the French Grand Prix. We have finally had the court case and the sentencing has been done with regards to the crimes committed by both Noah James and Mason Wood during last season's Formula One season, in which they broke into the team factory at Ford to steal information and data to send over to Red Bull. It has been confirmed that Noah James has been sentenced to 2 years imprisonment for all of the crimes that he committed during this. The courts have ruled that Noah James did indeed blackmail Mason Wood into coming along and to committing these crimes. The court had identified that Noah James did not in fact owe Mason Wood any form of money, neither did Mason Wood need to owe anybody any form of money. However, at one point during their time together, Noah James did indeed help Mason Wood by getting himself into Formula One. He indeed gave Mason Wood a contact to an agent that would help get him a Formula One drive. Noah James hung this over Mason Wood's head and forced him to go along with this crime. Otherwise, he would ring the agent himself and get him to take his contract away from Mason Wood, meaning Mason would then no longer have an agent and struggle to get himself through into Formula One. Mason Wood has been given a 6-month suspended prison sentence for complying with the criminal justice that Noah James asked him to go along with. The reason that Noah James has been sentenced is quite clear. The reason why Mason Wood has been sentenced to a suspended prison sentence is because despite the fact that he was indeed blackmailed into committing this entire crime himself, at no point did he inform anybody that he was trying to go ahead with this crime. If he had indeed informed somebody could have at least informed the police and tried to stop this at a much earlier time. But the fact is that he went ahead with the crime, maybe against his own will, it was clear, but at the end of the day, he still went along with it. Formally from this as well then, Noah James has been given a lifetime ban from racing from the FIA. He is banned from participating in any FIA sporting event. Full stop. With Mason Wood has been given a 1-year ban from the FIA for his actions, meaning that Mason Wood will have to wait until the start of next season to see if anybody will ever try and sign him up again. Will Mason Wood ever race in Formula One, or is that him run and done? But for Noah James, it certainly is. But finally, this entire saga is over. Noah James has been sentenced. Mason Wood has had his punishments. Ewan Wright can finally breathe a sigh of relief, and the Formula One world can move on. Taking a look at the race news then, heading into the French Grand Prix, all things going well for Red Bull. They managed to find quite a lot of form on Friday, taking FP1 and FP2 all for themselves, with Mercedes eventually going fastest in a rain-affected FP3. Jaguar, meanwhile, are continuing to struggle to extract more from their car. They were really struggling on Friday just to get everything right, and after speaking to Jaguar after Friday's session, they've now admitted that their car is extremely difficult to get into the right setup window. So Jaguar need to try and find a way to get their car right during Friday, because at the moment, every single race weekend, they're struggling to get the car into the right setup window, meaning that they're losing crucial amounts of time and data understanding compared to their rivals. This is why they believe they're not quite on the pace with the top 2 teams as of yet. Mercedes-Benz stated that they are lacking pace virtually everywhere. Mercedes are currently going through a very rough patch in Formula One, and it just doesn't seem to be getting any better as they're struggling to find any form of pace. Another team that's also missing some pace is Ferrari, but they're finding their issues are currently in Sector 1. They seem to not be able to get the car to work, especially during the off-camber corners, and it's really hurting the balance of their car. So hopefully they can try and find out the problems with that later on. But for now, let's get straight into the French Grand Prix. Yo, what's going on, guys? It is Foxydude here. Welcome back to a brand new video and another episode of the F1 Journey for you guys today here on the channel. Apologies, it has been some time since the previous F1 Journey video. Just way too busy at the moment, and a lot of stuff going on, which is compromising the videos. And of course, because they're produced at the standard that I want them to be at, it means that we have to delay them. But nonetheless, we are back, and we're here for the French Grand Prix. If you end up enjoying today's video, drop it a like, subscribe if you're only around here as well. Let's crack on with this weekend then. So we start things off here in the full wet conditions. A very tricky qualifying session here at France, and we're now going to try and blast our way up to the start-finish line and see where this first lap puts us, as Daniel Ricciardo does go fastest, and then we eventually pop ourselves into P2. We do another run, though, on these sets of wet tyres. We're currently 7th at the moment on the track. Where's this lap time going to put us? It puts us up to P6, so not too bad, but we can definitely try and find more time, and we're going to do that because later on in the session is right now the track actually dried up enough for the intermediate compound tyres, but a lot of drivers have decided, you can see the garages there, pretty much all of them have decided not to go ahead and set another lap here, which is going to compromise them massively now. So as we come towards the start-finish line here, where's this lap going to put us on the grid? It's a front row start for us here in France. It's been a long time coming, but we are finally back. We are here for another round of the F1 journey. The mid-season break is finally done, and we're here for the French Grand Prix here at Le Castellet at Paul Ricard, and we are hoping to have another great Grand Prix, and the pressure's going to be on, especially for Renault, as this is the team's home Grand Prix. The 3.63 mile circuit features many high-speed corners and plenty of long straights with 2 DRS zones to get your overtaking done. One down the Mistral straight into the chicane of turn 8 and 9, and then one on the pit straight heading in towards turns 1 and 2. The wet weather of yesterday has blown away, and we are here with hot sunshine for the race itself. No rain is expected here for the Grand Prix, as it spiced up the qualifying session. And we've got the soft, the medium and the hard compound tyres, but everybody is going to have a free choice of tyres thanks to a wet qualifying. So strategy is going to be very, very interesting. Let's have a look at the grid though and see who lines up where then. It is the familiar title contender foes at the front. It is Sam on pole position with ourselves alongside a tenth of a second shy of him. Next up is Nick de Vries, the only other driver to qualify on the intermediate tyres. Charles Leclerc is 4th. McLaren's are next, 5th and 6th, with Rees out-qualifying Daniel Ricciardo in his sister teammate. Stoffel Van Dorn starts 7th, with Carlos Sainz, the highest placed Ferrari, in 8th place. George Russell starts 9th for Audi, with Lewis Hamilton alongside of him is starting in P10 for Ferrari. Max Verstappen is 11th on the grid. Pierre Gasly lines up P12 for the second Renault driver. Lando Norris is 13th, with Valtteri Bottas an impressive P14 for Porsche. Callum Ilott is in 15th, with Oscar Piastri starting in P16 for Aston Martin. 17th is Sergio Perez, a rough qualifying for him. Nico Hulkenberg alongside him in 18th place. And the back row of the grid features Mick Schumacher and Robert Schwartzman. Alright, so we're here on the grid now for the start of the French Grand Prix here, and it is going to be either a one-stop race or a two-stop race. We can kind of mix it up both ways here. So what I've decided to do is actually go for a two-stop, but to switch it up. We're going to go medium, soft, soft. We're going to try and make that work. We know that this car is not brilliant through the corners, especially the high-speed corners, and we've already discovered that the best way this car works is by making the extra pit stops, but getting those soft tyres on, because they really are making a difference for us now. On the front row here, for the first time since the Singapore Grand Prix, it's 5 red lights then, and it is eventually going to be lights out, and there they go, and we can get underway then for the French Grand Prix. It's a good start from us. It's a much better start from the pole sitter, Sam, on the soft compound tyres. The only driver, I think, to go onto the soft compound tyres. De Vries started in 3rd, but it looks like he's under pressure on the minimap there from Charles Leclerc, who's eventually going to get past him. So it is Sam that leads this race. We're currently in 2nd place. Leclerc now up to 3rd. De Vries struggling a little bit back there now as we go through the end of the first sector now, and getting a little bit out of shape. We're getting well out of shape there. Massive amount of understeer already in this car now as Sam breezes away out front. Rees now in the McLaren there has just got past Nick de Vries. So Nick now, he was well out of position. He was the only other driver alongside myself and Sam to qualify on the intermediate tyres, and it's really hampered him in terms of his track position, because he's well out of position and he's going to have much faster cars like the Audis, McLarens, Ferraris and Jaguars all trying to get past him before he pretty much settles himself back down into his natural position now as we go through towards the end of the Mistral straight now, coming towards the last sector of the circuit. This is where we lose the most amount of time to the AIs. It's where they're much, much faster than I am, and it's where I really need to just concentrate, get my head down, try and nail every apex every single time, get the braking right, get the traction right, to basically limit the amount of time lost. We're not even going to gain any time from getting everything spot on. It's all about just making sure we don't lose so much time as we miss the apex of the last corner there quite badly. And in fact, speaking of a problem, there is an issue for Nick de Vries. He's already coming into the pits then, so he's already having problems, and that is a disaster start for the Mercedes. And let's go have a look at the start then and see how everybody cracked on with their starts then. So it was a light to go out here. It was a brilliant start from both myself and Sam, but Sam on those soft tyres gets the advantage off the line. De Vries didn't get a good start. Leclerc got a nice start and swoops right around the outside, and they pinned themselves 3 wide there into the first corner. Reese actually backed out of it in the end, but Leclerc got ahead, and this is on board with Charles Leclerc and his attack on Nick De Vries then. So it's the lights go out here. It's a beautiful start from Leclerc. It's a very weak start from De Vries. He doesn't get the launch that you would have thought that he could have potentially have got there. Now they're 3 wide into here, but for Leclerc, he just positions his car nicely to the outside. There's a lot of wheel banging going on there, so I wouldn't be surprised if De Vries damaged his front wing on that area of the circuit. This is further back now with Max Verstappen and the Jaguar, and his start was actually not too bad here, but he's going to pin himself to the inside line here. He's got one of the Ferraris on the... Oh, okay, never mind. I thought it would not go well for him, but that's a super dive bomb there from Max Verstappen. That's a trademark send it down the inside move there from him, and he's past Lewis Hamilton and also George Russell in that. Now he's fighting Carlos Sainz here in this little bit of a scrap, but unfortunately for Verstappen, he backs out of it there, so that didn't work for him. But fair play to Max, really scrapping along with it. Lap 5 of the Grand Prix now, and for us, we're starting to come under pressure here from Charles Leclerc. Sam is currently still leading this Grand Prix. We've gone wide into turn 1 here. That's compromised our line through turn 2. Back end sides a little bit here, and that's a gift for Charles Leclerc. He goes into second place then in the French Grand Prix. We couldn't hold him off. We made too many mistakes there, and that is a position that we really couldn't have done with losing. But we just need to hold on to Charles Leclerc, because all of a sudden now, we're in prime attack mode to get him on the straight now. We've got the DRS that's going to be coming our way here on the back straight now. DRS gets enabled. There it goes. We've got the quickest car probably than anybody in a straight line now, so we're going to let the car do the work. Foot flat to the floor now. Move it towards the inside line. Brake nice and late here. Leclerc really tries to fight that one off, so we'll give him as little track room as we possibly can without overstepping the boundaries. Now we're going to press on to the second half of the straight here. Leclerc now fancies a run, and that's it. We're going to have to defend against Leclerc now, going in towards senior corner. So he tries to keep it going here. This is going to go all the way around to the next right-hander here, and this is going to get very difficult. Leclerc goes a little bit wider on the braking. Reese tries to make his way through, and he does so. Now he's trying to fight through us here as we go in towards the exit of the last sector here. Back end not really working with us, as well as the front end actually. In fact, none of the cars really working with us. As Sam there in the Red Bull, look at the gap that he's pulled out as Reese tries to go for a move there into the second to last corner. Sam now pits. He's getting off those soft compound tyres, but he's built up a nice gap though. But he's going to rejoin in a lot of traffic, but that traffic is not going to be hard to pass, especially if we're the ones holding it up. He's going to really enable himself to get a lot of time here to gain on us now as we go through the first set of corners here. Nice and comfortable through there. Leclerc does indeed get back past Reese though in all of that. So Charles Leclerc maintains second place in this race. Reese is now down in third as Sam makes his pit stop. So this is now the battle for the lead here, but it's a battle for the net P2, because Sam will rejoin. We will rejoin behind Sam once he gets there. I'm not quite sure where he is in the pack, but I'm not quite concerned about Sam at the moment. What I'm concerned about is Charles Leclerc here as we make a very early move to defend the inside line here. Leclerc will try and go around the outside into the Nouvelle. It's not the Nouvelle chicane. I just made the Monaco reference. That's awkward. Nevertheless, though, we do defend against Charles Leclerc there. I can't remember what chicane that is even called, even if it's got a name for that matter. But Leclerc gets a nice exit, and this time around now, he's going to be further ahead as we go in towards this section of the track here. But once again, though, on the inside line, we hold off Charles Leclerc really nicely there. Reese now is going to battle with Charles Leclerc going into this final sector, and for the second lap in a row, Reese gets in front of Charles Leclerc, but crucially, he's a little bit too far back at this stage to try and have a go at me like he did on the last lap into the second to last corner. So as things stand then, he is going to be in a net P3 as we go on to the 8th lap of this Grand Prix now, trying our best here as we've got a yellow flag in the background there. We're trying to weave and break the toe from Reese a little bit here, but now we'll try and settle for the inside line as Reese is going to commit himself to the outside line here. We'll give him as little track room as possible once again. Open up the corner to give ourselves the strongest exit. That was a really nice tactic there, to just sacrifice a little bit of track time to get a brilliant exit. But Reese now is going to go for it here. We're running out of ERS now as we go through into the final sector here now. Reese, we're trying to do what we did to Leclerc, but he holds it on quite nicely in there. We break a little bit early. Reese decides not to do that. Now we'll commit to it. There's contact. Reese is going to carry on. We've spun round here. There's a massive car park now. Front wing damages is coming on everywhere now as we spin the car around. We're down into 10th place. The safety car has got to come out here. There's debris all over the racetrack. Carnage here on the 8th lap of this Grand Prix. And let's go and have a look what happened then. So as you can see here, Reese now and myself scrapping really hard here for track position here. Now as we're going towards this right-hander, I actually was a little bit behind in the corner, but I then decide to, it's a bit of a difficult one there. I wonder, as you can see there goes the damages there. Hamilton loses his front wing. I think Verstappen's lost his front wing as well in all of that there. So yeah, you guys can make that up in the comment section down below who you think was at fault. Looking on this in reflection, I think the gap was there, so I went for it, but I don't know, maybe I was being a little bit too desperate and should have just sacrificed the position. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the incident there, whether you thought it was my fault, whether you thought it was Reese's fault, whether you thought it was 50-50 or 60-40, whatever. Let me know. Maybe I probably could have backed out of it and accepted the defeat and try and got him on the straight, potentially. I'm not sure, but I felt like the gap was there, so I kind of went for it. Again, you guys can let me know. But that is going to mean the safety car is coming out, and we're going to have to all scurry into the pits here and get a fresh set of boots on. Now, unfortunately, two things. Number one, we got caught behind our teammate Gasly in the pit stops. Number two, when I was doing this race, as you can see by the pit crew being Alpine and not Renault, there was an update that came out when I was recording this game, and I completely forgot to back up my files for all of my pit crew in this race. I think it even happened in Jeddah, because I recorded Jeddah and France back to back, so it would have been in Jeddah as well. I completely forgot to back up the files for all of my pit crew, so they're not the correct pit crew. I can confirm for the next race at the San Marino Grand Prix, or the Emilia Romagna it is now actually, they are all back to normal, as unfortunately that's not Lewis Hamilton, it is actually Nick de Vries that's retired from this race. Again, we still don't have a names mod, and Christ, you think I'm going to make a names mod. But as we carry on now here, our race just goes from bad to worse, because we've now got a 3-second time penalty for track limit violations here on lap 11 of the Grand Prix. We used we used two of them actually, obviously, and now we use another one there to stay in front of Reese and also Charles Leclerc. And at this point in the race, with the spin that's happened, my head's just gone at this point, and I really need to just try and focus up again. At this point, the blood's boiled over, and I'm just frustrated at this stage of the race. This Reese there goes around the outside of Sam then. So Sam is the man, actually, that's lost out quite badly in this safety car procedure, because Sam, of course, was on the two-stop strategy anyway, but everybody on the field has pitted for a set of soft compound tyres. That's not going to happen Sam, though. He's going to try and come back at Reese, actually, now. As we're speaking about Sam's disadvantages here, he might make this into an advantage. Down the inside now on Reese. Fair play to him, he'll make it work there. So brilliant re-attacking there from Sam. But as we were saying, speaking of Sam now, who's now got Reese right behind him as the Ford car there, holding the rest of the drivers up. Sam pitted early for the medium compound tyres, but the advantage that he would have got when everyone else came into the pits for their first stop is completely wiped out. Now everyone's on a two-stop strategy, Sam's advantage is gone, and now the rest of the field on soft compound tyres. Reese goes around the outside of Sam into the chicane there, and he can pull away now. He's on soft tyres, Sam's on the medium. Sam's at a big disadvantage now in this stage of the race, so he's just got to hold on in there whilst the rest of the drivers concentrate on using up their soft tyres. But there is a man that's under pressure. It is Mick Schumacher, who actually was in the net race lead, when the safety car came in, but that's not to be anymore, because he's now absolutely getting swarmed by everybody as we watch there Daniel Ricciardo getting past the Porsche car of, I believe that was Hulkenberg, that he was trying to overtake there as Callum Ilott was just in front of him. Speaking of Callum Ilott, actually, here is Daniel Ricciardo going to pass Callum Ilott now as he goes onto the straight here, braking nice and late into the chicane. Goes Daniel Ricciardo, nice overtake there. Ilott decides not to defend that one, and that is game over now as we go on to lap 11 of the Grand Prix, back on board with ourselves here. This is Daniel Ricciardo straight in front of us. We're actually just time travelling a little bit further backwards here to where we are in all of this. So as you can see here, this is Ricciardo now that we're trying to attack here, and we try and go around the outside here in towards the last section. This is going to be brave if we can try and make this one work. It's not quite worked out, but we've got a nice run here now going into the final two corners now, so we're going to hold it around the outside here versus Daniel Ricciardo, but he stays in front, but we'll take the lunge, and once again for the second race in a row then, there's contact between myself and a McLaren there. Ricciardo carries on. We're also able to carry on and not spin, and we're going to have to hold off here Oscar Piastri in the Aston Martin. But once again, for the second time, we've hit another McLaren car. I think that time around was a little bit more over desperate there, but again, you can let me know. Lap 12 of the Grand Prix though, we're back on Daniel Ricciardo's tail here, and we're literally just swarming all over the back of the McLaren here. We get a fabulous run through this corner, and we're just going to make that move quite easy here, but Ricciardo fights us back there and goes down the inside. That's a lovely braking maneuver there, and that completely caught me by surprise. And at this point now, I was really getting quite angry here. I've actually whacked the Porsche car there with my front nose, but we go around the outside of Daniel Ricciardo, and we finally make up a position in this Grand Prix, and now we're up into 12th place here as we get very close to the back of the Porsche driver there, of Nico Hülkenberg, I think that is, and we overtake him. So Ricciardo now has to get past Hülkenberg, and he's got to get past Callum Ilott. Obviously, we've already seen that he eventually passes them, but we're doing a little bit of time travelling to back to where we are now. So this is us now trying to get past Callum Ilott. We set ourselves up through 1 and 2. Now we're going to have the run here down towards turns 3 and 4, and I actually fancy doing this before the DRS zone, and we actually do, because he's on all the tyres there, and we swoop around the outside, even making the apex. Now we've got a problem here. We've got a little bit of a car park going on here, and that's going to be quite nice for me, because as the back end slides there with a little bit of oversteer, George Russell has been dispatched. That's 3 cars now we've dispatched in quick succession, and that boiled over frustration that we were having, we're now starting to take it out on the drivers in the right way by getting these overtakes done. But now all of a sudden we've got a big traffic here. Lando Norris getting caught out there as we make more contact again for the 3rd time this race now. We've been turned into by the AIs there, and they're giving no quarters to us in this Grand Prix, and again we managed to survive. But there was a problem there because Mick Schumacher was going so slowly, they were going 3 wide as well, that it was just causing a little bit of problems, and we nearly got past Lando Norris, but we didn't make it stick. But now we're catching up right back to the Lando Norris, Mick Schumacher scrap, and we're going to try around the outside once again, just as we did with Daniel Ricciardo, but I actually messed up my braking point. But I'm actually going to squirt the ERS on and try and send it down the inside, but again, it's not going to work for us. But eventually, Mick Schumacher actually pits, so now what I'm going to try and do is set myself up here on Lando Norris, but unfortunately for me, I actually got it wrong and messed up my braking. I actually stayed in 3rd gear. I wanted to drop into 2nd, would have given me the much better rotation and cleaner traction, and maybe we would have got past Lando, but unfortunately it wasn't to be, and I actually screwed up these sets of corners now, and I've allowed George Russell, I think it is, to get into my area here, as we're now going to box on the end of this lap now, and we're going to go in for a set of the medium tyres. So this is how things stand then. So Reece still leading this Grand Prix. Sam looks like he's in 2nd place still. Leclerc is 3rd. Then we have got, I believe it's my teammate Gasly actually in 4th. So lots of stuff going right for us in this Grand Prix. But lap 16 of this Grand Prix, I did select a box in the previous clip, which I think was lap 14, but I decided to stay out 1 lap longer, and then eventually the lap that I was going to come in then after I extended by a lap, Gasly pitted, so I couldn't stop there. And as you can see, George Russell actually breezes past us. Now, George was in the DRS zone, and I decided there's no point in trying to use all my battery, everything I could possible to stay in front of him. There's just no point. I'm not really able to fight him on a straight, and I just decided to let him through. There's no need to do that. We're going to come into the pits for a set of the medium tyres and go to the end of the Grand Prix, because we're still in a bit of a problem here, because by the time we come out of the pits now, we've still got a lot of work to do, because A, we've got all these drivers that we're competing with, but B, just remember, we've still got that 3-second time penalty that's hanging over our heads. So if we're going to stay in a DRS train like this, at the moment, we're on course not to score a single point here at the team's home Grand Prix. So, that got a little bit close there. Yeah, at the moment, we're on course not to score at our team's home Grand Prix, and we really don't want that. It would just be a massive, massive pain there as Reece actually pits. Sam gets held up in the pits there by both myself and George Russell, so he's going to be absolutely fuming at that, because he was actually close to the back of Reece there, but unfortunately for him, he's no longer close there. We actually got held in the pits ourselves, I think, by the Ferrari, so Russell gains a little bit of time there. But let's see then where we rejoin in all of this. Where has the damage been done? We've stayed out longer on this second stint on the soft compound tyres. So where are we at then? Ricciardo does actually get the undercut on us then. So Daniel Ricciardo is in front. We are currently P10 in this Grand Prix, and that gap behind us does not look like 3 seconds to me. So at the moment, as things stand, we're currently out of the points here at the French Grand Prix. We're on board with Lewis Hamilton, who's trying to overtake one of the Ford drivers, who's also got the DRS. Both of them have the DRS, and it's going to be the Ford that wins out. Swoops around the outside into the chicane there, leaving Hamilton even more frustrated now as Leclerc sets the fastest lap of the race with a 1:25.0. Lap 17 of the Grand Prix. We're now trying to catch up to the back of Ricciardo, put him under some pressure here and get these moves done. We're now at a stage of this race as we start to swoop around a little bit. That's what we needed. Lock up for Ricciardo into turn 1, swoop back into turn 2, blast up some ERS now on towards the exit of turn 3 here. This is going to be our chance now to get past the McLaren here. Give him a little bit of space, round the outside into turn 4. Little bit of contact made there, but we get the move done just before the Mistral straight here, and hopefully we'll have enough speed to stay in front of Daniel Ricciardo. By the looks of it, that's exactly what we're going to have, and we're now up into 9th place in this Grand Prix, but we're now getting into a stage of the Grand Prix where it's starting to get very desperate for us here. This is Max Verstappen, also on the recovery run. He's overtaking the other 4 drivers here of Mick Schumacher, and he is through. Of course, Verstappen was in the points, but unfortunately for him, he actually missed out. His teammate Norris, though, is to overtaking my teammate Pierre Gasly in the Mistral straight here. This is for 4th place on the roads. Gasly currently in 5th at the moment now as Lando Norris makes the move there for Jaguar. There is Sam just up ahead in 3rd place now as we're on board here, lap 20 of the Grand Prix. And as I was trying to say multiple times here, this is desperate times now. We've got a 3-second time penalty hanging over our heads, so we need to make these moves count, and we've got to make them stick, and we've got to pull away. That's the target, that's the aim. And now all of a sudden, these medium compound tyres feel so much better than the soft compound tyres. We're now going to go maximum attack here now as we go in towards the chicane now. Getting the run here on Stoffel Vandoorne now, through towards the entry of the chicane. We'll get him on the exit, and that's a lovely overtake. Up into 8th place now, but as things stand, we're still finishing in P10 because Lewis Hamilton is just outside of our 3-second window. So we still have work to do. Lap 21 of the Grand Prix though. The battle for the lead is about to commence here. Reese leads the French Grand Prix. Leclerc, the championship contender at the moment, is going to try and go for it here. Down the inside into the chicane. Reese though holds him off. That's a lovely defensive piece of move in there from Reese. He gets the traction on the exit of the chicane. He stays in front of Charles Leclerc, but onto lap 22 of the Grand Prix now. Leclerc is going to come back at Reese for a second attack here. Sam is in 3rd, but he's catching these two quite quickly. So the more that they scrap, this is going to allow Sam to get right involved in the action here as Leclerc once again tries it down the inside into the chicane, but Reese does a beautiful defensive display there. He gives Leclerc as minimum amount of corner angle as possible, then sets himself up right at the end there. So it's really good tactics going on from Reese right now. Leclerc here is once again on lap 23, going to go for it, but Reese opens up the outside line, and that's what Leclerc wanted. Brakes late, swoops around the outside. Leclerc leads the French Grand Prix on lap 23. Reese drops to 2nd. Sam is in 3rd, but he's right behind them. These 3 are going to go to the flag with each other, but for us now on lap 23, we're still down in P8. We're not doing a good enough job here, but we're catching Carlos Sainz, and now we're biding our time. Now we're going to go for the attack here. We've had a fantastic run off the last 2 corners, and we managed to hold ourselves to the inside line for turn 1 as we now press on with the DRS here, braking late down the inside of Carlos Sainz, my bad. We get past Carlos Sainz there, and that's a lovely overtake from us as we press onwards now in this Grand Prix. Next up the road now is George Russell in the Audi, lap 25 of this Grand Prix. Again, you can still see there that all these overtakes are working out, but we're still not 3 seconds clear of the drivers behind. So we now need to try and enact a little bit of tactics for this final stage of the race here, as we now try and attack George Russell here. We're going to send it down the inside on George, drop it into 1st, and then chuck it on the exit curve there. Lovely overtake from ourselves on George Russell, but crucially, what I've tried to do there by going super aggressive and not using the DRS zone to make that move on George is I've tried to make the 2 of them scrap away with each other. And look at that, behind us on the minimap, they're really scrapping now in the chicane here, and we're building up an advantage. Lap 26 now, we're on the back of Pierre Gasly here for a run now on our own teammate as we now go through towards the end of the middle sector. We've had a fabulous run here. We brake nice and late. Gasly brakes even later, but he's broken way too late there. Goes super wide, and we're up into 5th now in the French Grand Prix, but crucially, I still need the other cars behind the battle. This is going to be the last lap now of this Grand Prix. This is where the AIs really turn up the wick now. You can see the top 3 actually just ahead there. They're still right up with each other, but this is where I really need the AIs to just battle and go for it and give it everything, because at the moment we're just still not far ahead as we're going to go on boards here, split screen it now, because all of a sudden the battle for the lead, the top 3, I said they were close, they're going to get closer here because Sam now is going to go for a run here on Reese. through towards 4 and 5. Will he make this one stick? Yes, he does. Sam goes into second place now in this race. Can he overtake Leclerc on the last lap of the Grand Prix, or does Charles Leclerc have enough in hand? He looks like he's got a good enough gap here, as we're now trying to close up to the back of Lando Norris here for a position of P4 now, after where we've been all race long. To recover to P4 on track, it depends on where we'll finish in terms of our time penalty. This would be absolutely sensational for us now, and as we go towards the outside line here, using everything we've got to pass Lando Norris, we go for it into the chicane. We're up into 4th place now in this French Grand Prix. It's been a sensational recovery drive from us after everything that's been going wrong in this race, from the spin that cost us. We actually set a purple middle sector there just to flex a little bit, but from everything that went wrong, from the spin, from the contacts, from the time penalties, we're really making amends in it in this final stint of the Grand Prix. I've literally gone into a possessive mode here, and as you can see, I'm literally bouncing all over the curbs now. But have we got enough in hand to stay in front as we actually mess up the chicane there? It looks like as well, from the battle for the top 3, Charles Leclerc is going to win his French Grand Prix, and he's going to take back-to-back wins in this season. And as we now press our way towards the line, we're 4th on the road. Where's this going to put us? It is eventually going to put us P6 on the road. It was a brilliant recovery drive in the end, but the time penalty did mean that we lost out in terms of the positions to, of course, Lando Norris, and it was Pierre Gasly that we lost out the positions for there. So unfortunately for us, we do lose out on those, but at the end of the day, rules are rules, and we obviously took the 3-second time penalty for exceeding track limits. But Charles Leclerc wins that French Grand Prix, but he was only 0.3 of a second clear of Sam across the start-finish line, with Reese 0.8 back in the other McLaren, finishing in 3rd. Lando Norris finishes in 4th for Jaguar, 7.7 seconds off the lead in the end, with Gasly 8.4 behind in the final race result. We come across the line in P6. We just about managed to stay in front of Carlos Sainz by 0.2 of a second in the end there by our time penalty. So it's a brilliant race from us, considering all the dramas we've had. George Russell finishes in 8th with 11.2 behind. Daniel Ricciardo is 12.2 behind in the end, with then also Lewis Hamilton finishing in P10 with 15.4 seconds. The deficit. Sam set the fastest lap of the race with a 1:24.7, giving himself the extra point for the fastest lap. Second half of the table, Stoffel Van Dorn outside of the points for Red Bull, with Max Verstappen as well finishing outside the points. Of course, damage for the front wing for them cost them dearly in this race. Callum Ilott finishing in 13th place for Ford, with Bottas finishing in 14th for Porsche. Robert Schwartzman 15th for Aston Martin, with Mick Schumacher crossing the line in P16. Nico Hülkenberg finishes the race in 17th place, with Oscar Piastri in 18th place. And it's a disaster day for Mercedes-Benz. It's a double DNF. Sergio Perez and Nick de Vries both retiring from this Grand Prix. Looking then at the Drivers' Championship now, and Charles Leclerc now leads the Drivers' Championship. After back-to-back race wins, he has overtaken us in the championship. He's on 121 points. We are on 110 points. We are now 11 points behind Charles Leclerc in this championship battle. Lewis Hamilton is 3rd in the championship with 71 points, with Reese 4th in the championship on 69 points, now just 2 points behind Lewis Hamilton. Lando Norris keeping himself comfy in 5th with 62 points. Pierre Gasly is 6th in the championship with 49 points. Daniel Ricciardo is 7th with 45 points. He's tied on points with Sam, who of course claims that podium here today to really skyrocket him up the championship standings. George Russell is 9th with 35 points, and Sainz has 33 points to his name. The next race for us is the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Looking then at the Constructors' Championship now, it is 159 points for Renault, 156 points for Audi. Just 3 points separates the two teams in the Constructors' Championship, but don't count out Ferrari and also McLaren, because McLaren have 114 points, Ferrari have 104 points. They are now the top 4 in the Constructors' Championship are separated by just 55 points, so it's all up for grabs in that area. One bad race from one of the teams could send them right down. Jaguar are on 91 points in the Constructors' Championship as they look to try and find some momentum to get themselves back into the battle. Red Bull are on 65 points, and they're starting to find a bit of form now. I wonder if these upgrades that Red Bull have been putting onto their car are starting to help them quite a lot. Mercedes are on 13 points, with Ford having 11 points, and Aston Martin and Porsche are yet to score. But that is it for the French Grand Prix. Let's get straight into the post-race notebook and see what the teams and drivers had to say after this French Grand Prix. Taking a look at the post-race notebook, Charles Leclerc makes it back-to-back wins in France as he managed to win for the second race in a row after fending off Rees and Sam in a titanic battle at the front of the field. Sam overtook Rees on the final lap of the Grand Prix to snatch P2, but was unable to take the win, missing out by 0.3 of a second. Alain Prost has hailed his team after a very strong home Grand Prix. Tom started on the front row of the grid, and things all looked to be turning sour thanks to the spin from Tom and the safety car coming out, but both himself and Pierre Gasly fought hard to take home a strong P5 and P6. Sam was gutted after the French Grand Prix. Despite claiming his best finish of the season so far for Red Bull, he felt like everything went against him after the pit stop early from his soft compound tyres. Everybody else was able to go onto the softs under the safety car, and that cost him as Sam was on the medium tyres. Then he got held up in the pits on his final stop, and that cost him even more time, and crucially meant that he couldn't have an attack on Rees until the final lap of the Grand Prix and had no chance to attack Charles Leclerc. Sam says though that Red Bull have found plenty of pace and are looking to move further forwards. And Toto Wolff has admitted that Mercedes are now in a crisis. Mercedes-Benz have been struggling a lot so far this season and through the previous seasons, but today a double DNF has put Mercedes-Benz into crisis mode, and Toto Wolff has said actions are going to be done and begin a new rebuild with Mercedes-Benz. Let's see if they can try and begin that in style at the next race at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. But for now, guys, hope you enjoyed this race, and I'll see you for the next one. Take care all.